The girl who knew the names of birds, as told by Mama Ejiro of Agbome village. If you had passed through Agbome 5 years ago, maybe on your way to Ologbo or crossing to Sapele, you might not have noticed anything special. Just another village with dusty red roads, cassava farms, and palm trees waving in the sun. But for those of us who live here, Agbonme was more than just a cluster of mud houses. It was where stories were born, some sweet, some bitter, and one that still burns in my chest like pepper. The story of Anuli, the girl who knew the names of birds. I knew her well. I watched her grow from a skinny child with stubborn hair to a young woman with quiet eyes and a spirit too wild for a small body. She lived just 2 compounds away from mine, in the part of the village we call Ugbo Ocha, near the edge of the forest. Her father, Namdi, was a palm wine tapper, a quiet man who spoke more to trees than to people. And her mother, Mama Ifeoma, God rest her soul, was the kind of woman who could make even stubborn yams soften when she cooked them. But it was Anuli herself who held something different. Even as a child, she would wander off into the bush, barefoot, sometimes with nothing but a calabash of water tied to her back. At first, we thought she was just one of those children with too much imagination. But then one day, she stood under the big mango tree by the stream and whispered a word, Uduku. And just like that, a small bird with bright yellow feathers flew down and perched on her outstretched arm. I saw it with my own eyes. At first, I thought maybe the bird was sick or mad, but when she called another nku nku, a whistling bird that always hid in the raffia palms, it came too, and that was when I knew this girl had something inside her, something the rest of us didn't understand. When I asked her how she did it, she only smiled. I just know their names, Mama Ejiro, she said. They tell them to me in dreams. Some villagers began to avoid her. You know how fear works in small places, quietly and fast, like a rat in the ceiling. But I saw the way she treated the birds, how they came and left as they pleased, how she never caged or fed them. She respected their freedom, and in turn, they trusted her. The elders didn't say much then. Anuli wasn't causing trouble, and everyone had their own farm to worry about. But everything changed the year Chief Emeka came back from the city with strangers. They wore shiny glasses and carried clipboards. They didn't greet elders properly. They didn't eat from the communal bowl or pour libation before meetings. They said they were bringing development, that they would build a resort, a highway, maybe even a golf course. But all I saw were lines drawn on maps that didn't belong to them. They said the forest must go. Our forest. The same forest where our grandmothers prayed under moonlight, where hunters sang war songs to warn spirits, where girls fetched wood and boys set traps. That forest wasn't just trees, it was memory. When word reached the village square that the land had been sold, there was shouting. Some men were happy. They spoke of jobs, shops, money. But the women were uneasy, especially those of us from Ugbo Ocha. We knew that if they touched the forest, something sacred would be lost. It was Anuli who stood up. That was the first time she ever raised her voice in public. She was only 19 then, barely out of her girlhood. But she walked to the middle of the square barefoot, her wrapper tied tightly, her eyes burning. If you cut the forest, she said, you will silence the sky. People laughed. Some clapped awkwardly, but her words stayed with us. Pat, too. After that day in the village square, Anuli changed. She stopped sitting under the mango tree. She stopped laughing with the children. Even the birds stopped perching on her shoulders. But they didn't go far. They circled above her head, sat on rooftops near her home, waited in the trees. It was as if they knew what was coming, something bigger than any of us could see. A week after her warning, the machines arrived. I still remember the sound. Metal groaning like an angry spirit, tires bigger than goat pens, and men in yellow helmets shouting like they were trying to chase the ancestors away. The first tree fell on a Thursday morning. The air changed immediately. Even the goats stopped eating for a moment. The birds scattered. And Anuli, she screamed. A scream so long and sharp it pierced the entire village. She ran into the forest barefoot. People shouted after her, but she didn't stop. I ran after her, old bones and all, because something in my spirit told me this girl should not be alone. I found her kneeling before the fallen tree, her hands pressed into the soil like she was holding the earth together with her fingers. Do you feel that? She asked me. Feel what, my child? They're crying, Mama Ejiro, the birds, the trees, everything. And then she did something that haunts me still. She began to sing. But it was not a song I knew. It was not in Ohobo, not in Igbo, not in any tongue I could name. It was a song of wings, of rustling leaves, of thunder rolling in a distant sky. And as she sang, the birds returned, one by one. Small ones, fat ones, bright ones, gray ones. They perched on branches, on her shoulders, on the machines. That night, the machines refused to start. The workers said their fuel turned to water, that snakes were hiding inside the engines, that their food turned bitter. Some of them ran away, saying this land was cursed. But Chief Emeka was furious. He called it sabotage. He accused Anuli of witchcraft. He went to the elders and demanded her exile. I was there. He stood tall in the ogwa, chest puffed like a cock, ready to fight. She has bewitched the birds, he shouted. She is standing in the way of progress. But Anuli's father, old Namdi, rose slowly, his walking stick trembling in his hand. You sold our land without asking the gods, he said, and now you blame a girl who still listens to them. Some elders nodded, but others turned their faces away. They were afraid, afraid of Emeka, afraid of the city men, afraid of being left behind. That night, a vote was taken. And just like that, Anuli was banished. They gave her 3 days to leave Agbome. The morning she left, the entire sky was gray. Not from clouds, but from birds. I had never seen anything like it. Egrets, weavers, hawks, swallows, they flew in low circles above our village, their wings slicing the air. And Anuli, she walked through the center of the village with nothing but a cloth bag and her mother's carved comb. Nobody spoke to her. Nobody touched her, except me. I hugged her tightly and whispered, "Don't forget who you are." She smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. "I will go," she said, "but this place will remember." And then she left, her birds following like a second shadow. 3 weeks passed. The trees kept falling. Without Anuli, the birds were gone. Their songs no longer woke us. The air was too still, the mornings too quiet. Even the goats moved as if something heavy sat on their backs. But Chief Emeka didn't care. The company brought in new machines, bigger and louder. They cleared half the forest and said they would build a new estate, big houses for city people. They promised jobs, roads, light. But all we saw were piles of wood and smoke. Then the sickness came. It started with a cough, dry, sharp, and painful. Then fever. Then weakness. First, it was a little boy from the northern end of the village, then an old man, then 2 women. Within days, 20 people were sick. The clinic had no answer. They said it was airborne. But we knew, deep in our bones, We knew. The trees were angry. The birds had carried our prayers, and now there was silence. One evening, I walked to the edge of the forest alone. There was a tree stump still wet with sap. I knelt beside it and whispered, "Forgive us. Forgive our blindness. If you can still hear us, send her back. Send Anuli." The next morning, the birds returned. They came in waves, clouds of wings and color. They landed on rooftops, fences, heads. Some villagers screamed, others dropped to their knees. Me? I just stood still. And then she appeared, Anuli, walking down the red path like a prophet from the old days, her cloth bag still slung over her shoulder, her face calm, but her eyes held the weight of the forest. The moment she stepped into the village square, the air changed. I felt it in my chest. Chief Emeka came out of his compound, confused, furious. "What are you doing here? You are banished." Anuli didn't even look at him. She knelt on the earth, spread her hands on the ground, and began to speak, not in our tongue, but in the language of birds, low, musical, layered like wind in the trees. And then, fire. I swear on my father's grave, fire rose from the earth, not a fire of matches or fuel. Number. This was a clean, golden fire. It spread like water, but it didn't burn the homes, didn't touch the people. It only moved toward the machines, the storage buildings, the company tents, everything they built in that forest. It turned to ash, and the birds circled above like witnesses. After the fire, Anuli stood. "Now they have what they came for," she said softly. "Greed." She turned to leave again, but I ran to her. "Don't go," I begged. "This is your home." She looked at me with sadness. "It was once, but not anymore." I understood then. You cannot call a place home when it chooses to silence you, when it fears your gift, when it traces its roots for concrete. She left again, this time not banished, but in peace. Some say she went to a mountain village near the border. Some say she married a hunter and taught his children the names of birds. Others believe she became one of them, transformed into wings and feathers, watching from above. But me, I believe she still walks the earth, listening, waiting. And when the next village forgets the value of trees, of silence, of balance, she will return with the birds, with the language the forest still remembers. And this time, may we be wise enough to listen.